From you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the dorm room. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation today with our guest today from the Office of the Diverse Learners. You see, I'm multitasking. I'm trying to hear myself as well. It's the eve of the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States of America, Vice President Kamala Harris and President-elect Joseph R. Biden Jr. will be sworn in tomorrow. In an America that continues to fight against the coronavirus, where over, at this point, 400,000 people have succumbed to the dreadful disease. Our youth are running rampant, perpetuating violence in the streets, carjackings, robberies, and other ills against people. Our schools across the state vacillate back and forth about reopening their doors or not. We've seen just recently that many of our state-run districts have decided to open their doors to students with the proper safety protocols in place. And here we are today, running schools, opening our doors to pre-K and cluster diverse learner students in our schools against the wishes and desires of many in our city. However, there are many, matter of fact, 77,000 families to be exact, that have expressed their desire to send their children back to school when the district opens its doors February 1st. K through 8th grade students will walk in. We know that this is not an easy decision for any of our parents and families when it comes to making a decision to return to school. But we are confident that the medical guidance, the science and information around COVID-19, and the positive data that shows the decreased rate of acquiring this virus in classrooms has led us to a safe and confident decision to bring our students back to school. So how do we make parents feel just a little bit more confident and safe to have their children return to school or to stay in school? The Office of Diverse Learner Supports and Services has worked hard to ensure that the most compromised students continue to receive a quality education, whether in person or continuing their education at home remotely. And we want to have that discussion today with you. Joining me today in the dorm room from ODLSS is Chief Officer Dr. Stephanie Jones, Principal Holly Dakers, and Assistant Principals Jesse Smith and Elizabeth McCarthy, and our SECAs, Sean Young and Brianna Trevino. So let's get right into our conversation with the Chief of ODLSS, Dr. Stephanie Jones, who's joining me today. We want to open up a conversation on the value and importance of the Office of Diverse Learner Supports and Services to bring students back to in-person learning and continue the support that has been given to ensure successful outcomes in the in-person and remote learning environments. So, Dr. Jones, welcome to the dorm room. This is CPS Parent University, and we just have a relaxed conversation here. As you know, when we get into the dorm room, we just kind of tell it like it is and make people feel comfortable in a space where we can see what's going on and the value that we're giving to our students in CPS. So let's talk about the implementation of programs and support that have been provided to our diverse learners actually since March 2020. We've been doing a lot of this work, and I mean, your office has had to really come up against a lot of challenges here to make sure that our diverse learners are actually successfully learning remotely first, and that's been absent of the support that they have in the classroom and everything like that. So tell us a little bit about how it's been going for you and how you've been handling things.
I just want to first start, if you don't.
And if you could just unmute yourself, you'll be all right.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I just want to first start by thanking you so very much for offering me to join you in this dorm room. This is quite an experience, but I'm excited to be here. I just want to say one of the things we take pride in is really creating platforms where we can listen and receive feedback from our parents. So through when we initially in March, probably March or April, started a FAQ to receive feedback from our parents and staff members. And that allowed us to really make some the necessary changes. And some of the concerns our parents expressed were in regards to what do services look like in this in our current state. So what we developed was a remote learning plan to really be aligned with students' IEPs, but allows for us to identify the difference in modality. How are we providing these services now remote? And that has, excuse me, provides that clarity, transparency, and continued partnership with our parents and our school team members. One of the other things that we identified is that just working in the framework around equity was some of our students. One of the programs for our students in the cluster program is the unique program. And we struggled as a district over the years in having consistency in that purchase and having it consistently throughout our schools. So one of the things we've done is added that from a district level where all schools have access to unique learning for their programs. We recognize this will be very essential and is comparable in being utilized both remotely as well as in person. Since we're back, looking at as far as reopening, one of the accommodations we wanted to add was the cloth face covering accommodation, which is for those students that are going to be, it will be a challenge due to medical reasons for them to have a cloth face covering the entire time. So parents have the option of requesting the form, having their physician complete that form and return it to the school where the nurse reviews and will assess. And we've added icons in our systems that we utilize for all educators that identifies if students have a cloth face covering. And our district reps and special education administrators continue to support our schools in regards to scheduling, support with simultaneous instruction, the roles of paraprofessionals during simultaneous instruction, synchronous versus asynchronous, and transportation, just amongst a few, just calling out a few areas. So these are the things that we've written our developed guidance to really support the transparency with our families, with our school teams, and continuing to receive feedback so that we can make the necessary adjustments. Thanks to your team, I've been able to attend many community events and really share, and I help everyone understand and building those relationships and understanding how we're supporting our diverse learners. Our goal is to ensure that our students continue to receive their services, that we prepare them for post-secondary endeavors, and that we are doing, and this is the right thing. You're on mute, sir. You're on mute.
Am I okay? This is you know what? In the dorm room, you know, we didn't have mute buttons and things like that, but I guess we do here. But listen, I was telling you, what about the challenges that you mentioned? I know there was a litany of them, but just some of the major challenges that you've had to mitigate and that you were successful in bringing resolve to.
I would say I would start off with just the unique program. That alone is something the district that we utilized, but we didn't utilize with consistency across our programs. And being, again, embedded in our framework of equity, I thought it was important to make sure that we were able to support that resource for all of our cluster programs. Some of the challenges I also would say is we continue to say and use this phrase like we're building a plane or we're building the plane in it. This is new to all of us. Unfortunately, we didn't have a blue book for when a pandemic hits. So we're learning as we're all affected by this, but really making sure that we are in this state that we're in, that we're continuing to make sure and place students as our priority, and ensuring that they have equitable and equal services as well.
So you've done a great job in bringing our students back to school. We started, this is the second week, right?
Yes.
Second week in our pre-K classrooms and in our cluster programs. And I'm glad to say that we do have people that are representing both sides here, pre-K and the cluster in our diverse learner classrooms. But one of the things that has been at the top of people's mind is how are we keeping our students safe and what the buildings look like when the students come into the building. I welcome bringing in some of the principals, but just from your point of view right now, what have you established in the schools to make sure and ensure that we are keeping children safe?
Well, the cloth face covering was something it was initially a challenge, but it was the right thing to do because there are medical conditions that will impact students having a cloth face covering on for the entire time. So that was huge for us in bringing students back. Establishing trainings and a pamphlet with the day in the life of a student in a cluster program and help making sure our parents understand this is what it looks like from the time they arrive, they stand outside for a bus, the time they get to our schools, what the classroom settings will look like, when it's time to transition and return back home. And I know that we have couple principals here with us today that have developed videos to support that and making sure that we have that transparency with our families as well as our school staff.
So I'm sure that this has been done very intentionally at the school level, and we have some principals here that can really add a little bit more context to this conversation. One of them is Principal Holly Dakers from the Rudolph Learning Center, along with her assistant principal, Dana Galati, who's on the stream, and then Principal Joshua Long from the Southside Occupational Career Academy. So you all are the ones who really, you got the boots on, you're doing the work, and you talk to parents to ensure safety. Why don't you talk about some of the safety mitigations that you've put in place that have made our parents comfortable?
Josh, you want to talk about your video first, maybe?
Oh, sure. Well, and Chip, and thanks for letting us come on and talk, but I have to tell you that the lion's share of the work is really happening with the teachers and the paraprofessionals. I mean,
right, yeah.
Holly will agree with me in saying that, yes, we worked really hard to interpret district policy and set up the things in our school to keep kids safe, but I am not doing the classroom work, and it's really our teachers and our paraprofessionals. So kudos to all of them, and that's where you have the effort really hitting home. But just, Holly said, talk about the video, and,
before you get into the video, Josh, do me a favor. Sure. Talk about what does it look like when the students come to the building, when they get off of the bus, or actually when they leave their home, get on the bus, get into the school. What does a day in the life of a student look like coming to your building?
Well, Dr. Jones started to mention this too with the infographic and the things the district's pushed out. But so bus pulls up, bus aid is there, does a temperature check of the students, ask the parents if they've completed that health screener. So any parents that are watching this right now, please complete that health screener before your child gets on the bus every single morning. A child gets on the bus and rides to school. They do remain socially distant on the bus the entire time. So that means 6 foot of space from any other rider. Once they get to the school, now this is going to pertain to my school. Typically in different non-COVID times, we have about 40 buses that bring our students to school. Right now, we're at about 14 with a lower number of students who are coming. But the buses pull up in a coordinated way. I have staff all over the place, signage. Students slowly get off the building. We've opened up our entire campus to have different doors being used so we can keep students socially distant as they approach the school. As soon as they get off, we do a temperature check. Then we check them in, do another temperature check, and they go straight up to their classroom where they have breakfast and get their instruction for the day. So it's a little different, but it's highly coordinated.
Okay. Let's talk about the video, because you've been very, very intentional about making sure that your parents are informed, and in doing so, you did a video.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chip, the overall goal is just for everybody to be informed, but also to kind of know what to expect, because we know with our students with special needs, a lot of the anxiety comes from not knowing what to expect, and that comes from the parents too. So we want to make sure that we're telling them as much as we possibly can. So while we send emails and do robocalls, we find that video really helps. So the process that I just walked through, we did an entire tutorial of the exact process, just outlining exactly what would happen for the students, just to prepare them to say, hey, okay, things are a little bit different. This is the way things are going to run. They're going to be okay, but this is the way we're going to do it.
I want to make sure that our viewers understand that when you put a question in the chat, we do have staff from the Office of Diverse Learning Supports and Services that are monitoring the chat that can provide immediate answers if they have the context to do so. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best near the end of the session to answer some of those. Okay. So Josh, the video, and let's look at your age bracket. Describe the age range of your school.
So we're on the other end of the spectrum from Holly. So we have 18 to 21-year-olds. These are students who have already completed 4 years of high school with their general education peers in a typical high school. And then when their peers move on to the world of work or the world of college, or our students come to us. And really our focus is to give them education and teach them anything and everything we possibly can to help them be functioning adults within their community upon graduation.
Okay. And so have you had any challenges with your parents? I know some parents just have chosen not to bring their children back to the building. And you continue to make sure that they have a quality education, high quality education as well. You want to talk about some of the things that you're doing there, and some of the teachers that may even have to teach remotely and in person at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, really, we embrace the child, we embrace their parents. I mean, never a challenge with any parent. I mean, we look at every student as an individual and just try to give them everything we possibly can to help them succeed. So we're always open for whatever parents want to ask us, or, concerns they may have. When it comes to education, we have a combination. We kind of have two models going, just like most schools in CPS who are open right now do, and then those that will be opening very soon will have. And that's classrooms we have a few that are entirely remote, because we had a large number of our students who chose to remain remote. But then all of our in-person classes are what we call simultaneous teaching. So we have students who are learning in person along with students who are learning at home. And so we've, I guess some technological challenges that we've had in the classroom is just coming up with a way that we can let that in-person classroom feel connected to those students who are remote. So we've tried to do some things like have some microphones, some speaker phones, some wide angle cameras, just to really capture what's going on in the class. So those kids at home feel like they're part of that group. And then we have the kids at home displayed on a board, so then the kids at school can see them too. And then they can talk to each other and interact.
I said I was going to do this at the end, but there's a question that just came through the chat. And it said that why are seekers required to be in school when their direct and only student remains remote? If a student has communication challenges, adding the mask to the equation can make it almost impossible for them to be successful remotely. I know you have an answer to that. I'm going to add one of our seekers to the equation here. Sean Young actually works at Southside Occupational. You want to address this question here, Josh or Sean?
Yeah, Sean, I could jump in, and if I miss anything, just let me know. But Chip, every school is different, so not knowing where Simone's child is, I wouldn't be able to say specifically. But right. For us, I can tell you, I mean, one, it's district policy. So if you don't have an accommodation to work from home, then you are required to come in. But even beyond what's in district policy, if that child is needing that paraprofessional support and we think that the mask is an issue, what we've done in our school is we've come up with different spaces where paraprofessionals can work outside of a classroom. And then that allows them to be alone in a space where they can take that mask off and work and support that individual student who may be remote. So I think there's always solutions that can be developed, not really knowing the ins and outs of that school.
Okay, Dr.
Also, if you don't mind, Josh and Sean, I'll jump in just a little bit. Also, we also, for students who have who receive speech services or has a speech difficulties, we also have the option of masks with the clear portion of the mouthpiece that allows for students and for students and staff in regards to being able to communicate effectively, especially as it relates to providing services.
Sean, your perspective, because you're actually doing the work in the classroom. Okay, how do you navigate your day?
I know my students, and I mean that might seem kind of selfish, but I kind of know who I need to turn my volume on my ear per se all the way up, and I know the students who have speech difficulties and those that have speech impediments. So I kind of know when student A, he's going to have a difficult time. So I know that, okay, I need to turn up and listen real closely to what he's saying. And we've done this with mask or without mask, as far as before the pandemic hit. So you have to know your students. And for those that have to wear a mask, again, you just have to know, you should know the rhythm of the cadence of your student up to this point. And even if it's a new student, that's what the education process is all about, trying to maximize their education. So you have to pay attention to those things.
Good. Now, Dana and Holly, you all have a different mindset here because your age range is a little different. I'm gonna bring in some of your teachers and your seeker. I'm gonna take Sean and Josh out for a minute, and then let's talk about your school specifically. Well, Holly, why don't you tell us the design and the makeup of your school, just so our audience is aware of what's happening at Root.
So we currently are pre-K. So as soon as a student turns 3, they might be placed here at Rudolph. This year we go up to 7th grade, and next year we expand to 8th grade. As we are a specialty school, based on students' IEPs, we welcome students from the entire district here at Rudolph. So no matter what zip code you live in, there's always a home, we like to say. And I think one thing that's great with the team I have with us, I can't do this work without Dana, I can't do this work without Bree, I can't do this work without Jesse. One thing that we have said from day one to our parents, and I think this really comes from a place of Dana and I both being parents, and I'm a parent of a 2nd grader and a 3rd grader. My own child actually has a 504. So really just understanding each family has a different dynamic, and we all have to do what's best for our families. And we've said that since day one, ever since we saw the Good Morning America video where the pediatrician said there is no right or wrong answer. The right answer is what's best for your family. And we've continued to build our platform upon that because we just want to be able to support our parents and our students, whether they're with us in the building or whether they're at home in their own environment. And just being transparent with our parents has really set us up for success, as one, they've trusted us to feel comfortable enough for the ones who choose to send their students here. And some have said, actually, I've been able to see my child flourish and grow, and I want to keep doing this in a safe place in our home. So we've just been able to support that, and the whole child well-rounded. Dana, you have anything to add?
Dana?
I think you summed it up very nicely. We have a great team of educators, from SECAs to teachers to related service providers, that are dedicated to providing a quality education, however your student is prepared to learn. And we're really proud of that and how we've been able to have that quality of education stay strong, whether you are in person or whether you are remote.
And Chip, you said this is the dorm room, so we say it like it is. So I just want everyone to know how proud I am for our staff members to be here each and every day, even when they don't necessarily feel comfortable with what's going on in the world around them, just day in and day out. But they have showed up and showed out and just been amazing in supporting everyone throughout this process. And as Josh said previously, they're the ones doing the work. It's not Dana and I, but our SECAs, especially, and our teachers, they're in the classrooms each and every day with our students and making it happen. So to all the SECAs and teachers out there, no matter what cluster program, even our TAs, like, we as admin, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being there in the buildings with your kids, whether they're there with you or at home. So thank you.
That is great. And so we have the teachers. You know what? I just feel that I just need to bring everybody into this room here, because the conversation is just taken on such a direction. When you talk about the teachers and the seekers and those that support staff that's doing that, Dr. Jones, I mean, this is a real strong support that you need to help move this work along. And I know that you do your due diligence to make sure that you're involving the voices of the teachers, the seekers, the APs, the principals, the resource vendors, OT, PT, auditory, all of that. I've been out. I can't really get the name of it right. I've been out of that game for a while here. But the OT, the PT. So tell me about this. When we look at the support that's needed in the classrooms, teachers, Ms. McCarthy, Ms. Smith, you all have been in here doing this work. You've been doing it at home. It just hasn't stopped for you since March, and now you're back in the classroom and things like that. Tell me, how does it feel? What's going on? How do you make this happen with our students day to day? And I'll take Ms. McCarthy first.
Sure. Short answer, a lot of coffee. That's how it happens. I'll be honest, it's not easy. I've talked to Josh and I've talked to Sean about it a lot, and I can say that it is a lot of teamwork. Like everyone's echoed before, we've been relying on one another for moral support, for guidance, for just even the quick, hey, today's really rough, like just give me something to laugh about. So I feel really lucky that I work with a team like that I've been able to lean on them, and vice versa, hopefully. Aside from that, I would say the kids keep us going. It's hard being in person and having remote students as well. I'm a simultaneous teacher. So yeah, it takes a lot of patience, but the patience that the kids give us and the understanding that our students provide, it's unmatched. So they keep us going as well, for sure.
So when you get into the school, when you think about your work here, how important has Sean been to your day-to-day activities and working with the students and things like that? Just how important has that been?
Our SICAs are unbelievable. I've been super lucky to work with Sean. Right now, we're not working together, but even still, I wouldn't be able to do my job without my SICAs. I'm lucky enough to have one online with me as well as one in person with me. And it is, I mean, I can't say thank you enough to them. I think I tell them, like, don't ever think I'm not appreciative. I'll say it a million times a day. But no, they know when to jump in, and sometimes they see things that I don't always see, and it's really great being able to have them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Josh, we're not going to, underestimate the fact that we are trying to bring our students back into schools. We have our pre-K and our clusters are back in, and then wave 2 opens up February 1st, I'm sorry. It's no secret that, this COVID pandemic has affected us in all spaces. You want to talk about the things that you've just recently experienced in your school and how you've mitigated it and followed the safety protocols that kept students and staff safe? And Sean, feel free to jump in there. Dr. Jones, join in the conversation, because that's what we're all trying to do, to make sure that we're keeping our students safe. And we're not going to be undeniable in saying that this won't happen in schools. Of course, it's going to happen in schools. It happens everywhere. But we do things in the proper way to make sure that our students are going to continue to be safe. So, Josh, you want to just talk about your experience and what you did to make sure that the rest of your students and staff were safe with the recent situation at Southside?
For sure. And, just for all the viewers, so what you're talking about, Chip, is that in our short 1 week of attendance, we had a positive student case, and we also had a positive staff case, positive for COVID. And, I'll tell you, we've been planning for opening for quite a while as administrators. And one thing that I've always felt was very clear was that COVID is, and I mean, geez, we see this every day, so this is not a surprise to anybody, but COVID's not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, yes, thankfully the vaccination's coming out. It's going to take a while to get vaccinated. But, the schools were never opened under the premise, in my opinion, under the premise that, oh, come on back to school, COVID doesn't exist anymore, you're not going to get COVID. So, we knew this was going to happen. The great thing is for us is that we have followed district guidance, and we have policies and procedures in place where we can make sure that we are able to isolate the pod if and when somebody, a staff or a student, tests positive, and we close down that pod. And so that's exactly what happened. You know, we were in school one day, student was sick, went to the care room. Every school has a care room. Student remained in the care room, then was picked up by the parent. Parent took the child to be tested. We were able to exclude the student till they went to get tested. Student went and got tested. Parent called us the next day, positive COVID result. We closed down the pod just as it was supposed to be. Then the next day we had the surveillance testing. That's part of CPS, where they go to every single school and test 25% of the staff every week. So then if you think about a month, 100% of staff will be tested. And one of my staff members tested positive. It's a rapid test, so policy there is that staff member then submits a second result or a second sample, and then they send it away for testing. Testing did confirm, and then in the meantime, once that rapid test is the only thing that we have, we still go ahead and shut down the pod, and then it stays shut down until we get the confirmation from that sample that was sent out. Sample came back, it was positive. We shut down the pod for 14 days. So it's not an easy thing. It's not a convenient thing by any means, but staff and students and families were all notified. Everybody's aware of it. It's a little scary the first couple times it happens, and I'm sure Elizabeth and Sean can talk about their personal experience. But we only shut down 2 classroom pods, which is exactly what we thought would happen, and it's what we wanted to happen in the case of a positive result.
Ms. McCarthy, did you trust the process? Because you stayed. So it looks like you did. Tell me about your experience there as a teacher in the school.
Sure. I stayed. I'm still here if you couldn't see the classroom light go off.
Yeah.
Do I trust the process? I trust my administrators immensely. And I know that they have our best interests in mind. I think as a teacher, when you hear about another pod in a situation like that, you automatically kind of look inward and say, oh my God, that could have been me, or what am I doing everything I can to make sure everyone's safe? So it definitely adds an extra layer of stress, questioning yourself and making sure that every step you do take is in the best interest of everyone's safety. So yeah, it's a lot.
Sean, you are a part of this. You became a part of this whole thing. How did it make you feel, and how do you keep moving? Because you love your job. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've loved this job for countless years. Again, it's one of those things like Principal Long said, you have to trust the process. I was notified. He told me, and honestly, I was trying to figure out what did I do, and I didn't. And I didn't do anything. But instantly, the funny part is waking up the next day. I have to be back on my A game. I can't let the students, hey, we still got work to do. We have to, we still got to get through these lessons, and there's things you guys still need to learn. So when my quarantine is up, I'm coming back. That's not an issue. That's not second guessing. That's not me. Should I go back? No. My principal can tell you I was there day one. I've like Elizabeth said, our admin, for lack of a better term, are on it. I never saw a school more prepared than we were. So, the cases we had, they were unfortunate, but the process worked. The pods were shut down, and that stopped any spread. That way everyone else does not have to feel fear for lack of a better term. There should be no fear. We pretty much, since I love animals, we cut the snake off at the head, and we're dealing with the situation as is. But CPS and our school, again, I can only speak for our school. They followed the guidelines, they followed the protocol, and I trust it.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Jones, I want you to.
I just wanted to.
You all have guidance, right? You have guidance for that.
We do, Chip.
And then also, I just want you to talk about, because I don't want to be so heavy-sided on the side of going back to school, because we have some parents that have not yet decided to go back to school and still want to know what that support looks like in the remote space. So let's talk about that second.
If you don't mind, I just wanted to piggyback on what Principal Dacre says. It is by this platform that we have right now is evidence of the commitment of our educators. That is our administrators, our teachers, our SIGAs, who are committed to serving our children. They are. We're in a great place and have a great group of individuals that truly care about our children in our community. And I just wanted to say that, just in knowing that you created this platform to highlight that, but the real conversations that are occurring here are due to the people here, people just like we have here, that are committed to making sure our kids receive everything they are entitled to and more, to ensure that there are no ceilings in regards to what their potential and options are. And that's exactly who we need to have here with us to make sure that our kids get everything and we continue to build and grow our community.
And you know what, I feel the support from all of y'all, the teachers, the admins, and the seekers. And I'm really just happy to hear all of the things and the passion that you have there. Dr. Jones, just talk about the guidance that the department has given to parents around this whole remote learning and in-person.
So, of course, in March, we came out with guidance, as the district came out with guidance to support our parents with understanding what remote learning would look like. We developed a remote learning plan because we feedback from our parents and staff members, like, I don't know what's going on. So we developed something to really provide that clarity, like, this is what this looks like. We're still following the same minutes. We still have to provide all the services that have been identified in our students' IEPs. That's unquestionable. Now the question is, what does that look like in this current state? And that's where our remote learning plan comes in place. Our guidance continues to evolve as we've gone from 100% remote learning to having a wave 1, and we're working on our wave 2 for K through 8 to ensure. So our initial guidance was parent and staff facing. Our latest guidance is more in regards to, this is the day in the life for students in the cluster program, and our wave 2 guidance will have a little bit more clarity, as we'll then be offering the hybrid as well.
Chief Johnson, I think we have really a good opportunity. Like Jessie and Bree, she also teaches simultaneously, and I think they just given good insight. So Jessie has the highest attendance in her classroom. She has 5 students that show up each and every day. And I think you ladies could really give a great view of how you've made it work, and what you've learned and how you've helped your fellow colleagues.
Mm-hmm. Jessie?
Yes, so like Holly said, me and Miss Bree have 5 kids with us every day and 5 kids who their family decided should stay at home. And just like Holly mentioned earlier, it really was looking at every student individually and where and what they needed in order to keep being successful. So the kids that stayed at home, we just kept the ball rolling. We continued remote learning, and really a shout out to the parents for being patient with us as we tried to navigate this new normal with 5 kids in the classroom with us. But really just giving students what they need, whether that's at home or in person, meeting their goals, working on IEP goals, and really working with families who are at home with what they need, what times work best for them, all those sorts of things.
So is it a challenge there for you, Jesse, when you're trying to do remote and in person at the same time? Because I've heard you've done it so well. Talk to us about it.
Yes, it is definitely a challenge. But I think in the world of special ed, you just kind of learn to adapt and do whatever you need to do to make sure things are working for your individual students. So we have a big smart board in our room where students who are remote are displayed, and then they're able to engage with their peers in that way. And it's been really cool. Some of our students who are in person are able to walk up to the smart board, wave at their classmate that's at home, and they're starting to understand that this is different than before, but this is still my friend, even though they're not in the classroom with me.
Ms. McCarthy, what about you? How does your time look there? Because I know you're trying to do the same thing. Synchronous and asynchronous is a little the hybrid, the in-person, the remote, all of that. What does yours look like?
Ours is actually somewhat similar. I have 2 students with me and 8 students that log in online. So like Josh had mentioned as well, we have a smart board that gives us a view of the whole classroom. And we really want the students to focus on being as independent as possible. So we're learning what it's like to lead a classroom with a classmate and with people remote. It's a challenge, and we're working through it. But yeah, like that, it's about being flexible and doing what's best for the students.
What have you seen, Joshua, Principal Dakers, Dana? What have you seen that's just glowing in the school and trying to mitigate this challenge in this pandemic? Because this is a first for all of us. I don't care whether we're 20 or 60, like I am. This is new.
I would say, I don't think like a learning curve for me, we didn't give our kids enough credit as we should have. I think there's this, okay, plan for the worst, hope for the best. Our kids showed up and showed out too. We had parents the last Monday that came almost in tears, like, you didn't call us, you didn't call us, you didn't call us. Everything was fine. And this classroom right here, which has quite a bit of movement that goes in, Bree's a one-on-one to one of our kiddos who just needs a lot of support in order to be his best. And Bree was like, oh, it was great. He's had the best day he's had probably in 10 and a half months. And it was a typical day, and he came in and he was learning. So I think one of the things that we learned is like, kids are amazing, and like, we always need to keep that at the forefront. And I think Bree would agree.
So, Dr. Jones, I have a question here in the chat. It says, when will the guidance be released for non-low incidence programs, or has it already been?
That is coming soon.
Okay, that's a question in the chat there for you. So let me go here, and Doc, I'll start with you first. Let's talk about what do related services look like at the school, both remote and in person, when we look at the OT, PT, speech, vision, and auditory. What does all of that look like too? Because those are much needed services too, according to a student's IEP, right?
Correct. And it's really pretty similar to Ms. McCarthy and Ms. Smith in regards to there are students who are coming in that are receiving that in-person related services. And then they're also supporting the students who choose to continue remote and continue to provide services in that manner. So it will include synchronous and asynchronous for those that continue with remote. But obviously students who are in person are receiving all of their minutes in person.
Okay.
So our related service providers also have the option and guidance in regards to pushing into classrooms, because we're also talking about, we have a small group of students who have come back, and so we don't have to continue with in the same manner that we did, which was pull out services. So it just really depends on the nature of the related service provider in regards to confidentiality and if they're able to do so within the classroom.
Mm-hmm. How does that look like? What does that look like at Rudolph? Okay, during the day.
So I think Jesse and Bree could really talk about like what it was last week when Mr. Jensen came in from PT. How did it work?
So I can actually take this one. Our PT came in last week to do an adjustment on a chair that hadn't been done in a while. And he was first amazed at how much the student had grown, like physically, in her time since he had last seen her. But he came in full PPE and still provided the services. He had his mask, his face shield, the gown, the gloves, which we were prepared for because some of our students are a little scared of the PPE. It's not quite something they're used to seeing. So we made a point to normalize adults wearing PPE. There's a couple stories that my colleagues and myself have created to ensure that our students are aware of the changes at school and how their related service providers and their teachers might look a little bit different.
And even building upon that, we also have yoga. And so this week, one of our PTs was out, but she's back now. So two PTs were on deck. And so this week they're actually pushing in and providing services while kids are in yoga, which is something that has been typical from Rudolph for the past couple years. And so kids online are also in yoga and kids in the classroom. So it's a way for a PT to be able to provide both services to kids in person and remote.
Okay. Doc, here's a question for you. Let's see. And it says, when should we be notified which pod our child will belong to in hybrid learning?
So the same as our pods that we've created, which were drafted by our amazing principals. And so when the schedules have been developed, that's when we'll share that information from the school team in regards to which pod and the teacher who is providing services for that student and the schedule. Principal Dax?
Yeah, I think I can, just for clarification, if that's a parent who's got a K-8 student in a non-cluster program, I received information of what pods my students will be in today. And I believe principals, based on information that came out Friday, were given an extension until Thursday. I have to go back and double check the dates, but parents should know if you're K-8, what pod your student will be in, whether it's shift A. I think we've also started calling it shifts, whether it's shift A or shift B. You should know no later than the week. And if you haven't, I encourage you to reach out to your principal or your school just to figure out where they are in that timeline process, because some schools have a large amount, whether it's 500 or 700 coming back, and some are only planning for 70. So it really that's what's great about being a CPS principal is that autonomy. But when you're talking about just a different large scale of numbers, the planning just looks different for each school. So I'm sure those principals thank you for your patience and understanding as well.
Josh, you want to add to that?
You know, Chip, I think Holly covered it, but it really is, just to agree with, every school is different, and, we're all trying to make it work based on our students that are coming back. We had 99 students who originally said they were coming back, whereas I have a great friend who's on the north side, and she has 732 students coming back. So it's just a totally different ball game based on each school.
Okay, that's great. So I want to, there's a video that I want to show as we just take a little break here for a minute, just so that you see exactly how we're preparing for wave 2. So I'm working off of 2 computers here. I'm going to mute this one, and I'm going to open up my other stream here. Okay.
And they have asked for an in-person learning option. While COVID-19 remains an incredibly serious threat, under the guidance of the Chicago Department of Public Health, we have decided to welcome students back in the new year. Later this month, we will be re-engaging families to better understand their needs and comfort level with returning to school. When students and staff return in the new year, they will find a very different learning environment that closely follows the CDC's guidelines for schools. Any person entering a CPS building will complete a health screener, have their temperature checked, and be required to wear a face covering. Students and educators will be grouped into small class sizes, and students will notice their desks and classroom furniture spaced further apart. Hand sanitizer stations are available throughout the building, and new signage encourages social distancing and good hygiene practices. To help prevent the spread of COVID-19, we're also supporting CDPH's contact tracing efforts and will provide students and staff who are symptomatic or a close contact with someone who tested positive with access to free COVID-19 tests. In addition to cleaning and sanitizing schools, providing masks for everyone, and posting signage throughout schools to encourage social distancing, independent state-certified environmental specialists have tested schools for indoor air quality, and we have checked classrooms to ensure they are properly ventilated and meet ASHRAE standards. Out of an abundance of caution, we are investing $8.5 million to provide every classroom with a HEPA air purifier that will remove 99.99% of airborne mold, bacteria, and viruses. By placing a HEPA air purifier directly in the classroom near students and staff, we can better capture particles and clean the air, which reduces the risk of indoor transmission of viruses and bacteria. We understand this is a personal decision for families, which is why families will determine for themselves if they are ready to return to classrooms. Families who choose to learn from home when in-person instruction resumes will have the opportunity later in the school year to opt in to classroom learning. And no student will be required to learn in person this school year if they prefer to learn from home. For more information on our plan to reopen schools, please visit cps.edu/reopening 2020.
So we are planning on opening schools, our second wave. Let me remove this. Our second wave, February 1st. And that's on our website, cps.edu/reopening. And so for our audience, you can find more information there. So I'm sure that we have been asked questions, principals, about how safe is the school, what's the ventilation like? We got HEPA filters. Do we have sanitation? Do we have PPE, masks? Do we have the hand sanitizer? All of that. Tell me, what is it like in your school? To each principal, I'm gonna ask Holly, then Dana, you can talk more about it, and then Joshua.
I have to give a shout out to Charmin at the warehouse, who made sure that we had all the PPE that we needed. So thank you very much, because when people feel protected, it's easier to do your job. Each room does have a filter that is on. We had an additional custodian who was added, who you see going around cleaning those high surface areas. And I can tell you that's noticed. Staff came to us and they were like, "Oh, I saw Missy. It's so good to see her going around and cleaning." And they needed that. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. We live by, our motto is wear your mask, wash your hands, and socially distance. That's who we are, and that's what we stand for. Mine are so dry right now. So I think you're doing a good job if your hands hurt, unfortunately, and we never want to say that. We, just like all of you, have lives not all the time outside of the jobs that we do, and we feel it is on us to let people know. The expectation is, at the end of the day, you go home safely to your families as well. Just as we want to go home safely to our families, and we want our families, whether they're at home or whether they're sending students here, to be safe. And so that's also another motto that we live by. And we've had difficult conversations of, we're a staff, this is what it looks like. This is what 6 feet apart looks like. Please make sure there's one at a table. Please make sure that you're wearing your mask and wearing it appropriately. We talked about making staff or classroom compacts about like what we're going to do inside of a classroom, because like we can control what we do in the office, we can control what we do in our classroom, but we can't necessarily control what we all do when we leave the building. So it was really nice to see that compact come from CPS as well this weekend. So that's one thing we're working on, so that we can just say, hey, we as good people who want to be healthy, this is what we're committing to do for our students, so that their teachers and their classroom and their classmates can stay healthy too.
Gotcha. Doc, you want to add
I had a
anything?
question also, and I'm thinking that parents may want to also know, like, what will IEP meetings look like now that we've opened up? So I'm just wondering if Josh and Holly would mind sharing what are their thoughts in regards to what can parents and staff expect in regards to IEP meetings? Because historically, we've always done them in person, and sometimes that team can be pretty large in one room. So how do we plan to, what does that look like for your buildings? And again, this can look very different as explained earlier in every building.
Let's start with Josh.
You know, we're flexible here, Chip and Dr. Jones. I mean, we certainly found the value in having virtual meetings. You know, it seemed pretty strange at first, and I think it's just because it was so quick and so forced, and we weren't really used to it. The great thing is that, you know, for anyone who's attended an IEP meeting, or a few of them, I guess, you know that some providers aren't able to make it, or they have to be excused early because they have to run to another school. The benefit of having people participate virtually is that all people are able to be online and be present. So I see really having, you know, at risk of sounding cliche, having a hybrid meeting where, you know, if people do want to come in person, we'll have some who are in person or in the school, and then other people who are participating remotely. But it so far is really shaping up to be a nice way to get people to come together for the students.
And I'm posting comments here. Some of our parents are posting, and it seems like they like that opportunity to do it remote as well. I mean, quite frankly, the remote space has really been a plus for us because it's really afforded us to really gain more time as opposed to losing more time, you know, especially, you know, with some of the meetings that me and Dr. Jones are in every day. It starts on time and ends on time. There's no taking the elevator down to the first floor. You're just right there. So it's been an advantage. Let me address this. This is here a question that has been put in the chat. And Dr. Jones, you may want to address this. Can we address the reduction in instructional minutes for remote learners? It says middle schoolers who stay remote are standing to lose a full instructional day a week of live instructional minutes. My third grader stands to lose 4 hours a week of live instruction. When 2/3 of diverse learners are staying remote, I am unclear how this is equitable. Do you have any a response for that one?
So I just want to thank you, Nicole, for that question. We've had many conversations, and as we are all aware, again, our schools are planning in regards to our students who will continue to learn from home. And that does include synchronous and asynchronous time. We, again, in our remote learning plan, have to identify what that looks like and how many minutes. Let's just say a student has 90 minutes for reading. How much time will be provided synchronous and how much time will be provided asynchronous? And that they both should equal the IEP minutes identified. So I'm not sure if it's a true loss in instruction, or maybe Josh or Holly understand it a little better than I do. But I'm not sure if it's a loss of instruction, as we've had Ms. McCarthy and Ms. Smith who are doing simultaneous instruction. So our students who are continuing to learn from home still have an opportunity to not only be around, engage with their teachers, but their peers also.
Holly or Josh, you have any response to it?
So I think we can just talk about a conversation we had at Rudolph the other day, just to be transparent. So we had some parents that are like, so I'm not quite sure how I feel about 5 days a week being a specialty school and in the cluster. We're welcoming students back here 5 days a week, unlike the K-8 neighborhood, which is, you know, shifts with Wednesday being off. And yes, if this is your choice as a parent, we can accommodate you. We will work with you. And then there was the, not necessarily understanding what we communicate. We try to over communicate. And then really just not realizing that there was actually a shift in what the minutes, we haven't decreased overall minutes, but coming back with wave one, there was a shift and the delivery changed. And Ms. Jessie had to address it with the parents. She did an amazing job because that's what she and her team do. And we also had conversations with teachers of like, so remember, these are the minimum. That doesn't mean that you can't go above it. And these are the maximum minutes. And I think we're lucky to have such a great team that they were like, oh, well, we need to go for the max. And that's just because every school culture and climate is different, and that's just where we are right now because we are a small school. It does give us autonomy to be able to have that wiggle room, I would say. Jesse?
So not necessarily the minutes in the IEP, but the instructional day is what you're speaking of. Got it.
Okay. Jesse, have you had conversations with parents around that have been concerned in the remote space?
Yes. So I guess as I prepped for simultaneous instruction, that was something that kind of concerned me as well. And I really just tried to make it transparent with parents that remote learning this week versus remote learning next week is going to look different. And that's just CPS policy. And me and Miss Bree try to do everything we can to make sure we're still seeing the remote learners and they're still getting the same instruction as the kids in person, but it is a really difficult shift. It makes our work a little bit harder, but it's worth it to make sure that they're getting what they need at home too.
Mm-hmm. Ms.
And
McCarthy,
just for clarification, before Ms. McCarthy jumps in, we are still following the minutes in the IEP. It's just different in regards to how we're designing our instructional day, which means if you go back to what Holly was speaking of, it could have possibly been more than what was required, the maximum, but yet we're still providing the IEP minutes.
Okay. Ms. McCarthy, what about your experience here? You've had conversations with parents around this issue?
Yes, I've definitely discussed with parents how different the day looks. And like Dr. Jones said, we are following the IEP minutes. I know Josh has really done a deep dive on this one. So I think he might be a little better equipped to explain how we've been able to work it out.
Sure, I can jump in. So we are considered a high school, and so we're in this, for everybody watching, we are a specialty school, sorry, late in the day, specialty schools. So we have all students with special needs. So yes, all students get their IEP minutes, but in terms of the instructional day for a high school, district guidance said that you can have 80% direct, so synchronous, and 20% asynchronous. So back when the whole community, everybody in the district was on remote learning, we felt like that was a pretty long day for our students. So we were able to structure a lot of our asynchronous time at the end of the day so that we didn't keep students online for this really long time. And really, those students being online often means that somebody at home is online with the students. So that's a pretty long day. But when we moved to where we knew we were going to have simultaneous teaching going on, so we would have students in school and remote, and knowing that we wanted to make sure that we created this environment where the school felt as one unit, because we are one very big family, what we did is we changed it, and really we went to the top end of the district guidance, and we have our remote students participating for an entire school day. So we really don't have a reduction. There are some asynchronous times, maybe like 10 minutes or so here and there throughout the day. But for our remote students, they're on at the beginning. When students get off the bus, they're on too. And when our students go to the bus at the end of the day, the remote students are still on also. And that was really important to us, just to make sure that community feeling was there.
So it's been important, Doc, and I know that I've been in some of the meetings that you have done and some of the forums and parent sessions. You've talked a lot about this since the beginning of this pandemic in March. You do a lot of info sessions for parents. You want to just talk about some of the sessions that you host in ODLSS so that those parents who may want to join more, learn more about information coming out of for support for our diverse learners, how they can join to help you? Talk about that for me.
Absolutely. We have a monthly meeting with parents. We just recently had one, and that information, they're called the FAB, the Family Advisory Board, and that is all 100% for parents with students with IEPs and 504s. That information, and far as the previous meetings, they're all recorded. They are uploaded on our webpage, and the information for the upcoming meetings are available. The committee is very interested in expanding that parent group to possibly be available at every school, so that we can all work together with our school leaders, our educators, to work to support our students with disabilities.
talk about the support that your team provides, because I know they do a lot of things. They just had a family session on, they call it the parent university family session.
We
Talking
hold
about-
those, we hold those quite often too, Chip. We have continue to support our school teams and our parents in regards to informing them of practices or the guidance. Our webinars are available. They have been recorded, so always available for future reference. It's been important for us to make sure that we are communicating and having that level of transparencies with our families, which is why I've been part of being able to attend and speak at the CAC meetings across our city, being able to hold webinars with early childhood for parents, being able to, now we're working on selective enrollment high school and having discussions that came from conversations and meetings with parents. So the changes we are making, the improvements we're making, those are all parent and educator driven.
So if a parent wants to get in touch with you or your team, what's a good place where they can go to get in touch with you all?
We have the ODLSS website, odlss@cps.edu, but I take emails from my work email. So that would be snjones4@cps.edu.
Okay, so with the few minutes that we have left, let me talk about this. And I'm going to get the truth from the teachers and the seekers. How have the principals done in supporting you all through this pandemic to make you all feel really special and really supported? So let me talk to the principals first. What have you all done? Because this has been, I mean, it can wear on you mentally. It can wear on your family life. It can wear on your social life, all of that. What have you all done to make sure that you have been trying to support your staff to prevent burnout, to prevent depression? I mean, you've dealt with a lot. What are some of the things that you've done here that made them really feel like, you know, we can do this? Dana, Holly, let me start with you.
No, I think Dana was an excellent choice to go to. She's my right hand, and honestly, you got to have a good person in order to do good work and keep good people here. So I think she's an excellent person who can talk about at least what we think we're doing.
And let's talk about Dana. Let me talk about Dana for a minute, because Dana, you worked in the Office of Specialized Services, ODL, that was before ODLSS. And actually, when I was a network chief, you served as my ODLSS contact. I forgot what you
Take an
called.
acronym and I did it. Yep.
There you are. Right. So, I mean, and the things that you did to support principals in Network 6 were just phenomenal. And now here you are at the school doing things for students and parents and just doing a great job. But looking at your job, and you see it from the district office and now you see it at the school level, what are some of the things you've done to support your staff to make sure that they can get through this?
Absolutely. I think it does bring a different perspective when you've been central office and you're school-based and you've been a classroom teacher before. Thank you to great leaders who have helped pave my way here. I will say that a big chunk of my role, even before COVID, had to do with coaching. And that was something that I wanted to keep sacred when I came to the AP role. It started with an instructional focus, and along this time, even when everybody was full remote, there is some instructional focus, but it really has shifted also to this, let's touch base, let's make a connection, let's talk about SEL supports, social emotional learning supports for us as adults. And I can't tell you how much of an impact it makes to be intentional with that about your staff and with yourself. If we don't take care of ourselves first, we cannot then secure anybody else's needs. It's like when you're on a plane, you have to put that mask on yourself first before you put it on anybody else that you're with, right? So Holly and I have really tried to be intentional about providing opportunities for those coaching sessions or check-ins or any sort of little feel-good thing we can do, providing a million opportunities, but also just being vulnerable as leaders and saying, like, when we are struggling, when we need a break, and what we are doing also to take care of ourselves, to lead by example.
Okay, Josh, what about you?
I would have a lot of the same things to share, Chip. And, the other part is just the one thing that I've said to my staff the entire time is just that this work, while it's about you and it's about me supporting you, is deeply rooted in our work, as it always is, which is the students, and just always making sure that we're focused on the students. And I would even suggest is, you move from me now and you move on to the staff. The one thing that I would hope that we talk about a little bit, just because we have so many families who are probably on this call, is just, do the students really like coming to school? Like, what does this really look like? I mean, we've been doing remote for a while, but how do people really feel? How do these in-person students really like, being confined to a space, not being able to hug their teachers, having to have scheduled times to go to the bathroom, eating lunch in the classroom? What's this really
Wearing a mask for 7 hours.
Exactly. So that is just my suggestion as you move forward. I'd love to hear what they have to say about that from both schools.
The ones who make it all happen, our teachers. Go ahead, Ms. McCarthy.
Sure. We're going back to our administration question, right? I'm just following along here. Great. Okay. I have to give it to Josh and our administrative team. Dr. Jones, you and CPS and your higher ups, you gave us a plan, but our administrative team took that and took it even more than one step further, I'd say. They really took our input and they make us feel important regularly. I'm not gonna lie, I had a really tough day and Josh caught me and there were tears, it happened. And it was just a reminder of like, hey, we're all in this together and I'm not gonna tell you it's gonna be fine, but I'll stand here and sit with you in it. So I really appreciate our team and the input and just how much they ask of us and like our opinion, we are doing it. So it feels really great to be heard.
Jesse?
Just piggybacking off of that, I think Holly and Dana do a really great job of making sure that the SECAs and the teachers know that they are heard and that just making sure that we know that our jobs matter and that we're doing everything we can. And it's really nice just to hear that from you guys every day that, the work that we're putting in, it matters at our schools.
And Sean, I got a sense that you really felt supported at the opening of this conversation. Anything you want to add to that?
I was supported since day one. Again, I've told Principal Long countless times, I've never had a principal that hits the ground running. So when all of the things needed to be done and make sure everything was right, he was in every room, every space. Again, I kind of laughed. In my particular classroom, I had tables. They were already what I thought were 6 feet apart. He was like, oh no, we're going to remove those. We've got this other table. And it was just like, wow, to see him come in and strategize. In every room, he did that. So it was like, okay. On a personal level, since with the SECAs, at least in our school, there were, he had an open forum where everybody could communicate how they felt. But me personally, my principal must have knew today was a bad day. I got a text this morning just checking in on me. Again, I've had previous administration. I don't think, oh, okay. This administration, he checks on me since day one, since this has happened. So this is what it's day 4 or 5. I don't know. I've lost count. But he has sent me an email. He sent me a text message. So it's almost like I view this as combat. And if my commander in chief is doing all of this, then I have no qualms about standing up and going into battle with him side by side. So my administration and my principal is he's just the best. He's supported us since day one. So, and I'm not saying that because he's so.
Right. Brianna, any last words from you?
Yeah, so I think in this type of situation, it's very easy to feel like you have a lack of agency in your health and your safety and your livelihood. And Holly and Dana have been amazing at kind of reassuring myself and a lot of my colleagues that we're safe, we're within the guidelines provided to us by the state and by CPS. And that although it may be difficult and things are going to look different, that at the end of the day, they have our best interests at heart and are looking for our success professionally, as well as the health and success of our students academically.
So all I hear is just really, and I know this has been challenging, but I really appreciate how you all have really navigated the storm here and really did your best to support all of the initiatives that we're trying to put out here to support our students and to make our families feel like they are receiving a quality education, whether they choose to come back to school or whether they choose to stay at home. We know that there's going to be more to this as we're getting ready to inaugurate a new president. We'll probably see some changes in how we're doing things. And so hopefully we won't be in this space too much longer. But as long as we have to be in the space safely, we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that we're doing the right things to make sure that our students are learning and that they are safe. To the chief of this department, Dr. Jones, you've heard some remarkable things from your principals, your assistant principals, your teachers, and your seekers. And I know it must make you feel good to know that you at the helm of the Office of Diverse Learners and Support Services are doing a great job. Give us your last words. I'm gonna let you have the last words here.
I just want to say, I started my education career in Chicago Public Schools, opened up the Air Force Academy High School. Coming back to Chicago was easy because these are the hardest working educators I've ever had the opportunity to work with. So it is a pleasure. I was waiting and I knew we were going to hear, like, of course, everything is not perfect and we're not trying to mask it as if it is. But we have resilient educators. That's our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our administrators that are sitting here on the ground. And again, as I said earlier, they are the epitome of true work, and we are doing it for the sake of our children. So I'm so thankful to be able to share this platform with each of you. I'm excited about the work that we're doing and the work that we're going to continue to do. And the partnerships that we continue to engage in to make sure that we are helping to build our community. So thank you. Thank you all. Let me just give you all a hand because this has been a fantastic session, and just thanking you all for what you do for the children in Chicago Public Schools. Dr. Jones, it was something I wanted to say to you, but other than the fact that you're just a phenomenal leader, leading our department, just thank you very much for your services. I do want to say to the audience, though, that we will begin our adolescent series with Lurie's Hospital. The sessions will support adults in supplementing school-based sexual health education by having thoughtful, culturally responsive, and LGBTQ plus inclusive conversations at home. Each session will focus on a different topic around sex ed, and they'll showcase videos of real one-on-one conversations to get you started. This is to help parents discuss sex education with their children. This is all coming up on our CPS Parent University virtual classrooms. On Thursday, we're going to have at 4:00 the Ask the Expert series. In his position as Chief of Facilities,
Clarence Carson will be responsible for providing all CPS students with clean and safe learning environments. He has been doing that since March. So here what Clarence Carson and the Department of Facilities has been doing. And I think, Dr. Jones, you'll be appearing, or have you already appeared on that? I think you'll be appearing the next week, right?
January 28th.
January 28th at 4 o'clock. And we're looking for those who want to hear more from Dr. Jones. We'll be sending out the RSVPs for that as well. We do this to just make sure that our parents and our audience families are being informed. It is important that you all know exactly what we're doing. So to all of you all, from Dr. Jones to our principals, the teachers, and the seekers, I'm sure that Dr. Jackson and Chief Latanya McDade would say, just as I would say, thank you so much for your service. We really appreciate what you're doing to navigate these waters here. And I know that there's just even more to come. For those who are listening, if you have friends that were not able to get into the dorm room today, we do post this on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page at CPS Parent U. CPS Parent U does a lot to engage our families and to inform them of all of this. So we want to make sure that people are getting the messages that we're giving out. So tune into our Facebook pages and our YouTube channels for more. And you all guys, share this with your parents, share it with your audiences and things like that. Let them see all of the things that you're doing. Matter of fact, we're in a remote space. So I'm sure you haven't been able to travel. Tag somebody from out of town and tell them to look at you to hear some of the good work that you are doing, okay? Dr. Jones, thank you all so much. And thank you, audience, for being with us today. This is Chip Johnson, and I am in the dorm room with Chicago Public Schools Parent University. And we will see you on February 2nd with another session of Dorm Room at 4:30 right here on Facebook Live. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.